We now turn to our top story. As China celebrated National Day on Tuesday, protests became violent in Hong Kong. People in Taiwan also took to the streets in solidarity with Hong Kong. Let's take a look. This past Sunday, tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets in Taiwan amidst the rain to show support for Hong Kong. At a rally in Taipei, two pro-unification supporters threw red paint on Hong Kong singer and democracy activist Denise Ho. Ho is suing them for intimidation and other crimes. Meanwhile, mass protests continued throughout Hong Kong over the weekend and on Tuesday, China's National Day. Violence has been escalating as protesters threw petrol bombs and police dispersed protesters with tear gas. Protesters lifted up 5 fingers, a symbol of their 5 demands. They are calling for an independent inquiry into police brutality, amnesty for arrested protesters, no classification of protesters as rioters, universal suffrage, and Carrie Lam's resignation. The violence reached a new height on National Day. A policeman shot a protester with live fire for the first time. Protesters were attacking police officers when the shot was fired. The victim who fell to the ground is an 18-year-old high school student. The police officer shot him at point-blank range in the chest. He was taken to the hospital in critical condition. The police said the shot was made in self-defense. At least 25 police officers and 66 protesters were injured, and 180 people were arrested on Tuesday.
So what is the endgame for the protests in Hong Kong, and does Beijing have a strategy? Now, one person believes that Beijing does have a strategy, and that is renowned Hong Kong professor and journalist Frank Ching. Recently, Natalie sat down with him and asked him whether he thinks that the protesters' 5 demands will be met.
The Hong Kong government doesn't have the authority to grant universal suffrage in Hong Kong. It's up to the Chinese government. And as for an amnesty, I think it's very difficult because some of these people who have been arrested, undoubtedly they are guilty of offenses, some of them serious offenses. And I think it would be difficult for any government to say, okay, we won't press charges.
What's going to be happening at the end of this?
That's a very good question. At the end of the protests will come to an end at some point. And I think that China will increase its control in Hong Kong. So far it's been political control. Now I think China is going to increase its economic control over Hong Kong. You've seen how China has been able to act against Cathay Pacific, the big 4 accounting firms. It's like any company that has any business ties in the mainland, China can control. So what needs to happen is for China itself to realize that it should not do these things because it needs Hong Kong as an international financial center. That what's good for Hong Kong is good for China. And also I refer to China's concern about its international image. So I think China should realize that its image very much has to do with how it deals with Hong Kong. And if it treats Hong Kong well, the world will think well of China. If it treats Hong Kong badly, it will affect the way the world looks at China.